For this technique, I'm going to use a sampler, but you can also do this directly in audio. It's just kind of handy to be able to pitch the sampler around easily. So let's just add the sampler here. And I'm going to start off with a really simple recording. Something like this. We can also increase the volume a bit here. And I want to boost this sound quite a bit, so I'm already going to use an OTT afterwards. And now the main modulation is going to come from this vocoder here. So this is what it sounds like with the default setting. And we want to make use of the pitch tracking function here. So let's select this and just extend the ranges here. And now you will notice that the sound is really quiet again. So let's just copy the OTT after the vocoder. And we can also add a glue compressor just to boost up the volume. So now we have this kind of sound, which is already quite nice, but actually we want to make use of the pitch tracking. So the vocoder is trying to detect a pitch that the oscillator is going to be pitched to. But the thing with these percussive sounds, like the one we have here, or in general just non-tonal sounds, is that the behavior of this vocoder is going to be really unpredictable. And in most cases, it's obviously not going to be able to detect a pitch. The functionalities on the left side here are not going to work. What I found to work though is that we can use a tonal sample and have the vocoder detect the pitch and then switch back to whatever sample we want, and it's gonna keep the pitch because it's not gonna change the pitch unless it detects a new one. So let's just use a different sample quickly. Something like this. Now it's detected the pitch, and now if we go back to our original sound, now we can make use of the oscillator down here. What sometimes can work as well with these percussive samples is that you use a pitch envelope here with quite a bit of decay. And sometimes, depending on the sound, this is enough for the vocoder to detect a pitch. But if that doesn't work, then just put any tonal sample in between, have it detect a pitch, and then exchange the sample again. And now obviously also, depending on what kind of tonal sample you're using, it's going to change how your non-tonal sample is going to sound eventually. Also be aware that since the behavior of the vocoder is going to be quite unpredictable with non-tonal samples, it's possible that the sound is going to get really weird, and then you're just going to have to import a new instance of the vocoder to just reset everything. And you can also try stacking the vocoders after each other. And also if you want to have the sound really wide, you can use this left-right mode here. If you're using a sampler, you can also enable the loop function here. And so then you could also just record a few variations of these and just randomly play around with the different settings here. You could also use an LFO or something else to modulate this. And then you can use this sound that you just created and put it into the sampler as a source. Just gonna reduce the volume here a bit. And you might also want to change just the volume envelope here if you want to, let's say, make this a bit shorter and more percussive maybe. You can also use the pitch envelope to create a bit of a more punchy start of the sound. And of course, you can also use more effects. Just be aware that whatever effect you're using before the vocoder might change the behavior of the vocoder. Maybe you want to just use an Alt-O and put this on some of these parameters here. Just maybe reduce the depth of this so it doesn't go over the full range. And eventually what you will probably do is just create a long file with a lot of different variations of this, recording stuff while messing with all the settings in the vocoder, and maybe, depending on what kind of effects you're using, with the settings of these effects as well. And then you're going to end up with a really long file with a lot of different stuff in there. And then you can just extract the good parts and use them as layers for any, I guess, futuristic sci-fi sound. And to give you a better idea of how I would use these kinds of sounds, I have quickly created a few more complex layered sounds, which are based on some of my own assets that I've created before. And I've incorporated the sounds that I made in the tutorial. So this is not mixed at all. As you can see, there's nothing going on these tracks, except on the track where I have the sounds from the tutorial. But I hope this gives you some kind of idea how you could use those. I've mainly cut the lows on these, saturated them a bit, put a bit of reverb on them to make them fit a bit better with the other sounds, and then also made them just really wide with the harsh delay, because I didn't make them wide before with the vocoder. So yeah, in this case a really subtle usage, but you could of course center them a bit more for the sound and make them louder, saturate them more. Also, you probably want to process them beforehand when you're actually recording everything. But I think these are great to add a more of a glitchy, wet sci-fi feel to any sounds. And once you get into more advanced processing, then you can also create more complex layers like the ones I'm using here based off of these sounds. So I hope this helps and maybe inspires you to start doing stuff like this as well.